At the edge of the known universe, far from any living world, there was a station. It floated near a dead star that gave no light and no warmth. The station was called Omega-7, and it existed for one purpose only. It held the most dangerous creatures ever found in the galaxy. The Galactic Hegemony had built this place with fear in their hearts. They used the strongest metals. They created locks that needed 17 different keys to open. They'd place guards at every door, and those guards never slept. The creatures inside were nightmares made real. Some could melt through walls. Some could control minds. Some were so terrible that looking at them would drive a person mad. But none of them compared to what lived in cell block 0. The cell had no windows. It had no doors that could be seen. The walls were made of a material that did not exist anywhere else. Inside this cell, floating in perfect darkness, was specimen X-91. No one knew where X-91 came from. The oldest record said it had simply appeared one day, millions of years ago, on a peaceful planet called Verdana. Within 1 year, every living thing on Verdana was dead. X-91 had eaten them all. Not just their bodies, but their memories, their knowledge, their very souls. After Verdana came the Silk Empire. 3 billion souls across 40 planets. Gone in a decade. 10 to 91 wore their faces, spoke with their voices, and used their love against them. Families opened their doors to what they thought were lost relatives. They died screaming. Then came the Iron Coalition. They knew what was coming. They prepared for war. They built weapons that could crack moons in half. None of it mattered. X-91 slipped through their defenses like water through fingers. It became their generals. It became their leaders. It turned them against each other. And when the last soldier fell, X-91 laughed with 1,000 stolen voices. The Galactic Hegemony had finally trapped it. It took the combined might of every surviving civilization. It cost billions of lives. But they had done it. For 3,000 years, X-91 had floated in its cell, waiting. On this particular day, a small ship arrived at Omega-7 carrying supplies. The pilot was a young creature named Bolo, with blue skin and 4 arms. He had made this trip many times. It was boring work, but it paid well, and he liked boring. Boring meant safe. Bolo docked his ship and began unloading crates. He nodded to the guards. They nodded back. Everything was normal. Deep inside the station, a tiny wire began to heat up. It was old, this wire. It had been installed when the station was built, and no one had thought to replace it. The heat grew. The wire melted. For exactly 0.003 seconds, the power to cell block 0 flickered. In human time, 0.003 seconds is nothing. A blink takes longer. A heartbeat takes longer. But X-91 was not human. It did not think in human time. In that tiny moment, X-91 moved. The creature had no true form. It could be anything. It could be as small as a grain of sand or as large as a mountain. It could be solid or liquid or something in between. Now it became thin. Thinner than paper. Thinner than light. It flowed through a crack that was smaller than an atom. The alarms began to scream. Guard. Captain Yeva was drinking her 3rd cup of bitter coffee when the lights turned red. She dropped her cup. The brown liquid floated in the zero gravity as she ran toward her station. Her hearts were pounding. All 6 of them. The screen showed her the worst possible words. Cell block 0 breach. She wanted to believe it was a mistake. She wanted to believe the sensors were wrong. But she had been trained for this moment. She knew what she had to do. Her hand trembled as she reached for the emergency broadcast button. Her voice trembled as she spoke. All stations, all ships, all worlds. This is not a drill. Specimen X-91 has escaped containment. I repeat, X-91 has escaped. May the stars have mercy on us all. Across the galaxy, beings of every shape and size heard the message. Some began to cry. Some began to pray. Some simply held their loved ones close and waited for the end. X-91 moved through the station like a ghost. It found 2 guards standing at a door. They had time to turn around. They had time to see something that should not exist. Then they were gone. Not dead. Gone. X-91 had taken everything they were and added it to itself. More guards came. More guards disappeared. The creature did not feel anger or joy. It did not feel anything that smaller beings would recognize. But if it had feelings, it would have felt something like amusement. These creatures thought they could hold it. They thought their walls and locks and guards meant something. They did not understand. Nothing could hold X-91. Not forever. In the docking bay, Bo the pilot was running toward his ship. He did not know what was happening, but he knew it was bad. Very bad. He just needed to reach his ship. He just needed to fly away. He did not see the shadow behind him. He did not feel it enter his body. One moment, he was Bolo. The next moment, he was something wearing Bolo's skin. X-91 looked through Bolo's eyes at the small cargo ship. It searched through Bolo's memories. The ship was going to a small planet. A young planet. The beings there called it Earth. X-91 had never heard of Earth. It did not matter. Every planet was the same. Every species was food. The creature walked onto the ship with Bolo's legs. It sat in the pilot's seat with Bolo's body. It smiled with Bolo's mouth. A new hunt was beginning. Jisoo sat on the floor of her small apartment and stared at the mess. Her cat, a fat orange creature named Nabi, had knocked over her last bowl of instant noodles. The noodles were everywhere. On the floor. On her research papers. On the one clean shirt she had left. She did not have the energy to be angry. She was too tired for anger. Jisoo was 32 years old. She was a marine biologist who studied deep-sea creatures. She loved her work more than anything in the world. But loving something did not pay rent. Loving something did not buy food. And the university had just rejected her research grant for the 3rd time. The letter had arrived that morning. They had used very polite words to say no. They had thanked her for her hard work. They had wished her luck in her future efforts. But the meaning was clear. Her research was not important enough. She was not important enough. Outside her window, the city of Seoul buzzed with life. Millions of people going to work, meeting friends, living their lives. Jisoo felt very far away from all of it. Her apartment was cold because the heating had broken last week, and her landlord refused to fix it. Her phone was silent because she had pushed away most of her friends. Her heart was heavy because she could not remember the last time she had felt truly happy. She picked up a bottle of soju and took a long drink. It burned her throat, but she did not care. At least the burning was something to feel. On her small television, a documentary about deep-sea fish played quietly. The narrator talked about creatures that lived in total darkness, miles below the surface. They had never seen sunlight. They had never known warmth. But they survived. They found ways to glow in the dark. They found ways to hunt without eyes. Jisoo loved these creatures. They were strange and ugly and beautiful all at once. They did not care what the world thought of them. They just existed, doing their best in an impossible place. She wiped her eyes. She had not realized she was crying. In the corner of the room, something moved. Jisoo blinked. The corner looked wrong somehow. The shadows were too deep. The darkness seemed to have weight. She stared at it for a long moment, trying to understand what she was seeing. The darkness stared back. If Jisoo had been fully sober, she might have screamed. If she had been in a better state of mind, she might have run. But she was tired. So very tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of fighting. Tired of everything. So instead of screaming, she simply sighed. "Oh great," she said to the impossible shadow. "Now I am seeing things. Just perfect. This is exactly what I needed." She took another drink. "You know what? I do not care. Whatever you are not charging me rent. So you can stay in that corner all you want." She turned back to her documentary. X-91 did not move. It did not understand what had just happened. The creature had existed for millions of years. It had consumed billions of beings. Every single one of them had reacted the same way when they saw its true form: fear, terror, the desperate need to escape. Their minds would break before their bodies. Their screams would fill the air before they fell silent forever. But this human had looked at 1091 and simply shrugged. Was she blind? No, X-91 could feel her gaze. She had seen it clearly. Was she stupid? No, the creature could sense her intelligence. Her mind was sharp, even through the alcohol. Was she brave? Perhaps, but this felt like something else. Something X-91 had never encountered. She simply did not care. The human continued watching her documentary. She laughed softly at something the narrator said. She scratched her cat behind the ears. She acted as if there was not an ancient cosmic horror hiding in her corner. X-91 tried to understand. It searched through all its stolen memories, all the billions of lives it had consumed. None of them had ever reacted this way. None of them could explain this human. Hours passed. The human fell asleep on her small couch, the television still playing. Her cat curled up on her chest. She looked small and fragile. She would be so easy to consume, but X-91 did not move. Something was wrong. The creature knew it should attack. This was what it did. This was what it had always done. Hunt, consume, grow. There was no other purpose. Yet it stayed in the corner, watching. The human talked in her sleep. Mumbled words about fish and research and loneliness. Her face, even in sleep, looked sad. 10-91 had seen sadness before, usually right before the fear came. But this was different. This sadness was old. It had been there for a long time. When morning came, the human woke up slowly. She groaned and held her head. She looked at the corner where X-91 still waited. "Oh, you are still here," she said. "I was hoping you were a dream." She stood up and stretched her back. "Well, whatever you are, I have to go to work. Try not to break anything." She fed her cat. She put on clothes. She left the apartment without looking back. X-91 was alone. For the first time in its long existence, the deadliest creature in the galaxy did not know what to do next. It had come to this planet to hunt. It had found a perfect first victim. But something had stopped it. Something it could not name. The cat walked over to the corner and sat down. It looked at X-91 with the calm confidence that only cats possess. Meow. It said X-91 had destroyed civilizations. It had worn the faces of kings. It had made entire species disappear from the universe. But in this moment, in this small, cold apartment, it simply sat in the corner and waited for the strange human to come home. 7 days had passed since X-91 arrived in the small apartment. 7 days since it had consumed anything. 7 days since it had hunted. 7 days of sitting in a corner and watching a human live her small, quiet life. This was wrong. 10-91 knew it was wrong. The hunger was always there, a constant pull in whatever passed for its soul. The need to consume was as natural as breathing was for lesser creatures. Yet every time X-91 prepared to strike, something stopped it. The human was doing it again. It was 2 in the morning, and she was standing in front of her tiny microwave, watching cheap food spin circles. She was wearing old pajamas covered in pictures of cartoon fish. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were tired. She pulled out the food and sat down at her small table. She did not eat in the kitchen like most humans. She ate at her work desk, surrounded by papers and books about creatures that lived in the deep ocean. "You know," she said to the corner, "these fish can survive at pressures that would crush a submarine. Thousands of meters below the surface. No light, almost no food. And they just keep going." She took a bite of her food. "Sometimes I think about them when things are bad. If they can survive down there, I can survive up here. You know?" 10 to 91 did not know. But something in its ancient mind shifted slightly. The human was talking to it. Not screaming. Not begging. Just talking. Like it was normal. Like X91 was just another presence in the room. On the third day, the human had placed a small dish of water near the corner. "I do not know what you eat," she had said. "But everyone needs water, right? If you are real, I mean, you might still be a stress hallucination. My friend Minji says I work too hard." X91 did not need water. X91 did not need anything except the life force of other beings. But there was something about the gesture that made the creature pause. No one had ever offered X91 anything before. Not willingly. Not without tricks or traps. By day 4, Jisoo had given it a name. "I am going to call you Gomi," she announced while brushing her teeth. "It means trash in Korean. Because I found you in the corner like trash. No offense." She paused, toothbrush in mouth. "Do you understand Korean? Or any language? Blink twice if you understand." X91 had 17 eyes at that moment. It blinked all of them. Jisoo stared for a moment, then laughed. It was a tired laugh, but real. Okay, that was creepy. But also kind of funny. "Good night, Gomi." She went to bed. X91 processed this new information. It had a name now. No one had ever named it before. The galactic hegemony called it Specimen X91. The species it destroyed called it death, or the end, or simply screamed without words. But this human called it Gomi, trash. Somehow. 10 to 91 did not mind. By day 5, the apartment was getting very cold. The heating was still broken. Jisoo wore 3 sweaters and wrapped herself in blankets. Her breath made small clouds in the air. That night, X91 did something it had never done before. It changed its form. Not into something that could kill. Not into something that could hunt. It became warmth. Pure, gentle warmth that spread across the cold apartment like an invisible blanket. Jisoo woke up confused. "Why is it warm?" She mumbled. She looked at the heater. It was still broken. She looked at the corner. The darkness there seemed to pulse softly, like a heartbeat. "Did you do this?" The darkness pulsed again. Jisoo smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. The first real smile in a long time. "Thank you, Gomi." She went back to sleep. X91 kept her warm through the night. Far across the galaxy, the hegemony was in chaos. Their hunter-killer fleet had been searching for X91 for weeks. They scanned every planet. They checked every ship. They found nothing. "It has to be somewhere," Admiral Tova shouted at her officers. Creatures do not simply disappear. But X91 had done something no one expected. It had stopped. It had stayed in one place. The hunters were looking for death and destruction. They were looking for eaten worlds and screaming masses. They never thought to look for a cosmic horror that was learning how to be a space heater. On day 6, something changed in Jisoo. She came home from work looking different. Not happy exactly, but lighter. She had been talking to her friend Minji again. She had applied for a new grant. She was trying. Domi, she said, sitting down near the corner. I think I have been very sad for a very long time. I did not notice because sad became normal. Does that make sense? The darkness shifted. It formed something almost like a face. 17 eyes blinked slowly. I used to have lots of friends, Jisoo continued. I used to go out. I used to laugh. But then work got hard, and I pushed everyone away. I thought I was being strong. I thought I did not need anyone. She pulled her knees to her chest. But humans are not meant to be alone. We break when we are alone. X-91 listened. It had never listened before. Not really. It had always been focused on the hunt, on the next meal, on the endless hunger. But now, in this cold apartment with this sad human, it found itself paying attention. On day 7, Jisoo fell asleep at her desk again. She had been working on a new research proposal, and exhaustion had finally won. Her head rested on her papers. Her breathing was slow, and STEADYX91 moved. For the first time, it left the corner. It flowed across the room like a living shadow. It reached Jisoo and stopped. She looked so fragile, so easy to consume. One touch, and it would be over. But instead of consuming her, X-91 did something different. It draped itself over her shoulders like a blanket. It became soft. It became warm. Jisoo stirred in her sleep. Her hand moved and touched the darkness. She did not scream. She did not run. Thanks, she mumbled without waking. X-91 had destroyed 3 civilizations. It had existed since before most species were born. It was the most feared thing in the galaxy. And now it was a blanket. If it could feel embarrassment, it might have felt it then. But mostly, it felt something else. Something new. Something almost like peace. The galaxy continued to search. The hunters continued to fail. And in the small apartment in Seoul, the deadliest life form in existence learned the meaning of comfort. Kang Do-eun had the strangest job in Korea. Maybe the strangest job in the world. He worked for a department that did not officially exist. It was called the Extraterrestrial Affairs Division, and it had a staff of exactly 4 people. Their office was in the basement of a government building that everyone else had forgotten about. Their budget was smaller than what most offices spent on coffee. For 10 years, Do-hyun had filed reports about strange lights in the sky. Almost all of them turned out to be drones or airplanes or kids with flashlights. He had never seen a real alien. He had never expected to. Then the transmission came. It arrived on a frequency that human technology should not have been able to receive. Do-hyun's old computer had flickered and buzzed, and then a message appeared in perfect Korean. This was strange, because it came from somewhere very far away. The message was simple. A dangerous creature had escaped. It was somewhere on Earth. All intelligent species were warned to run. Do-hyun had laughed at first. It sounded like a joke. But then more data arrived. Images, videos, records of what this creature had done. He stopped laughing. For weeks, Do-hyun worked quietly. He used every tool his small department had. He tracked energy readings. He followed strange reports. He looked for anything unusual. The trail led to Seoul. More specifically, it led to a small apartment building in a neighborhood called Mapo-jiu. The thermal scanners showed 2 life signs in apartment 302. One was human. The other was labeled with words his computer could not translate, followed by a warning symbol. Do-hyun stood outside the door for a long time. His hand trembled over the doorbell. He thought about his wife at home. He thought about his daughter, who was only 7 years old. He thought about what he had seen in those videos. But he was the only one who could do this. So he pressed the button. The door opened. A woman stood there. She was in her early 30s, with tired eyes and messy hair. She looked confused but not afraid. "Can I help you?" she asked. Ms. Park Jisoo? Yes, that is me. Do-hyun showed his identification. It was not technically fake, but it was not entirely real either. I am Agent Kang Do-hyun. I am with the government. I need to talk to you about your roommate. Jisoo's expression changed. Not to fear, to something more like protective annoyance. Behind her, Do-hyun saw the shadows in the corner of the apartment shift. You should come in, she said, but take off your shoes. Do-hyun entered the apartment. It was small and cluttered. Research papers were everywhere. A fat orange cat slept on the couch. And in the corner, something waited. He had seen the images from the Hegemony's database. He had seen what X-91 could become. But this was different. The creature had formed itself into something almost cute. It looked like a mix between a shadow and a cat, with too many eyes that blinked at him curiously. Jisoo sat down on the couch and picked up her cat. The shadow creature moved closer to her, positioning itself between her and Do-hyun. So, she said calmly, what do you want to know? Ms. Park, do you understand what that thing is? His name is Gomi. Do-hyun opened his mouth, then closed it. He had prepared for many scenarios. He had not prepared for this. The creature you are calling Gomi has destroyed 3 civilizations. It has killed billions of beings. It is the most dangerous entity in the known galaxy. Jisoo looked at Gomi. Gomi looked back with 17 eyes. Is that true? She asked the creature. The shadow pulsed. It was hard to read, but it seemed almost embarrassed. Gomi does not talk much, Jisoo said to Do-hyun. But I have been living with him for 3 months. He has not hurt me. He has not hurt anyone. He fixed my heating. He keeps me warm at night. He scares away my terrible landlord when he comes asking for more money. She shrugged. He's the best roommate I've ever had. Do-hyun rubbed his temples. This was not going the way he expected. The Galactic Hegemony wants the creature returned. They have made it very clear that if we do not cooperate, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? They did not say specifically, but they have very large ships with very large weapons. Jisoo was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at Gomi. Do you want to go back? The shadow expanded. For a moment, Do-hyun saw something terrifying. He saw hints of the true form. The endless darkness. The consuming void. He understood, in that moment, why civilizations had fallen. Then Gomi shrank back down and moved closer to Jisoo. It was the clearest no Do-hyun had ever seen. He does not want to go, Jisoo said, and I do not want him to go either. Miss Park, this is not a pet. This is a cosmic horror. I know what he is. I have known for a while now. He let me see once. His memories. She shuddered slightly. It was terrible. All that death. All that loneliness. Loneliness? Jisoo nodded. He has been alive for millions of years. He has consumed billions of lives. But none of them wanted him. None of them accepted him. They all ran. They all screamed. He was alone even when he was surrounded by others. She reached out and touched the shadow. It leaned into her hand like a cat seeking affection. I know what loneliness feels like. Maybe not for millions of years, but I know. And I will not send him back to that. Do-hyun sat down heavily on a chair. His mind was racing. This was supposed to be simple. Find the creature. Report it. Let the aliens handle the rest. But nothing about this was simple. What do you expect me to do? He asked finally. Tell them he is not here. Tell them you could not find him. They will not believe that. They have scanners. They have technology far beyond ours. Jisoo thought for a moment. Then she smiled. Then tell them the truth. Tell them he is here. Tell them he is not leaving. And tell them that if they want to take him, they will have to go through a very stubborn Korean marine biologist first. Do-hyun stared at her. This small, tired woman. was threatening to fight the entire galaxy for a creature made of nightmares. Humans, he thought, are absolutely insane. "I will see what I can do," he said finally. He stood up and walked to the door. Before he left, he looked back. "For what it is worth, Miss Park, I hope you are right about him." Gomi waved at him with a shadowy tentacle. It might have been friendly. It might have been a warning. Dayun did not sleep that night. He had calls to make, messages to send, a galaxy to convince. But somewhere in his heart, he hoped the small woman and her cosmic horror would be okay. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was not going well. Representatives from every known species had gathered in the Great Hall. There were beings with scales and beings with feathers. There were creatures made of light and creatures made of stone. They came from worlds of ice and worlds of fire. They had nothing in common except one thing. They were all terrified of X-91. Admiral Tova stood at the center of the hall, her multiple arms waving with frustration. On the giant screen behind her, surveillance footage played on repeat. It showed a small apartment on Earth. It showed a human woman drinking tea. And it showed the deadliest creature in the galaxy sitting in her lap like a pet. "This is impossible," Tova shouted. "We are looking at the destroyer of civilizations, the eater of souls, the end of all things. And it is cuddling." The footage continued. Park Jisoo was explaining something from a book. She used her hands when she talked, making excited gestures. Gomi had formed small appendages to hold the book open for her. Its colors shifted in patterns that the xenobiologists had finally, reluctantly, identified as Containment. "Perhaps it is a hunting technique," suggested Counselor Ven, "a being made entirely of floating crystals. A new method of consuming prey, lulling them into comfort before the kill." "For 6 months?" Tova responded. "The creature has been there for 6 months. The human is healthier than when it arrived. She has gained weight. She has reconnected with friends. She received funding for her research. If this is a hunting technique, it is the strangest one in history." The screen changed to show Agent Kang Do-hyun. He was sitting in his basement office, looking tired but determined. His face was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Honored counselors," he said, "I have spent the past week studying this situation. I have spoken with Miss Park many times. I have observed the creature you call X-91, and I believe I understand what is happening." "Then explain," Tova demanded. "Because nothing makes sense anymore." Do-hyun took a deep breath. "X-91 has never encountered humans before. It has consumed many species. It has studied them all. But humans are different. We are strange in ways even we do not understand." He pulled up images on the screen. A human with a pet wolf. A human feeding wild bears. A human swimming with sharks. "We adopt things," Do-hyun continued. "We look at dangerous creatures and think maybe I can be friends with that. We find abandoned animals and bring them home. We form bonds with beings that could kill us without effort. It is not logical. It is not smart. But it is who we are." The council murmured among themselves. Ms. Park looked at the most dangerous being in existence and thought it seemed lonely. She offered it water. She gave it a name. She talked to it about fish. And somehow, that was enough. Enough for what? Ven asked. Enough to change it. Or maybe not change. Maybe X-91 was always capable of this. Maybe it just needed someone who was not afraid. Someone who accepted it without conditions. The screen returned to the apartment footage. Jisoo was now asleep, her head resting on a pillow of shadow. Gomi had wrapped around her protectively. The orange cat was sleeping on top of both of them. "The creature called Gomi is not hunting," Do-hyun said firmly. "It is healing. And so is Miss Park." They found each other at the right moment, when they both needed something they could not name. Admiral Tova was silent for a long time. "What do you suggest we do?" she finally asked. "Leave them alone." The hall erupted in chaos, being shouted in 100 languages. Some demanded that Earth be destroyed. Some demanded that the creature be recaptured. Some demanded that humans be studied, because clearly there was something very wrong with them. But Counselor then raised a crystalline limb, and slowly silence returned. "The human makes a valid point," Ven said. "X-91 has been contained before. It always escaped. It always returned to destruction. But now, for the first time, it has chosen to stop. Not because of walls or locks or weapons. Because of kindness." Ven's crystals chimed softly. "Perhaps that is worth more than another prison." The vote took hours. Many species refused to accept it. But in the end, the council reached a decision. X-91 would be monitored, but not disturbed. Earth would be designated a protected zone. And Park Jisoo would be granted a new title, one that had never existed before: Guardian of the Void. She found out about it a week later, when Do-yoon knocked on her door again. "They are calling you what?" she asked, holding a cup of noodles in one hand. "Guardian of the Void. It comes with a small salary and access to galactic libraries. Does it come with better health insurance?" Do-hyun checked his notes. "Actually, yes. Full coverage, including dental. Then I accept." Behind her, Gomi had formed into something resembling a cozy armchair. Jisoo sat down in it, and the shadow adjusted to support her perfectly. Her cat jumped into her lap. She looked, for the first time since Do-hyun had met her, truly content. "Domi," she said, "we are official now. You are my responsibility." The shadow pulsed warmly. 17 eyes blinked in what could only be happiness. Far across the galaxy, species were already writing new textbooks. The chapters about X-91 were being revised. The ending was being changed. Not destruction and death, but something no one could have predicted. Peace. Years passed. Jisoo's research on deep-sea creatures became famous. She discovered new species that no one had seen before. She wrote papers that changed how people understood the ocean. And always, at her side, was a shadow with too many eyes that handed her coffee and scared away anyone who tried to steal her parking spot. She never got married. She never had children. But she was never alone. One night, many years later, she sat by her window and looked at the stars. Gomi was wrapped around her shoulders like a scarf. The orange cat had passed away long ago, but they had adopted 3 more since then. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to wonder why you stayed. You could go anywhere, do anything, but you stayed in my tiny apartment with my boring research and my bad cooking." The shadow shifted. It formed something almost like a face, turned toward her with ancient eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. "I think I understand now," Jisoo continued. "You were looking for the same thing I was. A place to belong. Someone who would accept you as you are." She reached up and touched the shadow. It felt warm. "I am glad you found me, Gomi." The shadow that had once destroyed civilizations made a sound like 1,000 stars humming in harmony. It was the closest it could come to saying, "I am glad I found you too." Outside, the universe continued its endless dance. Galaxies spun. Stars were born and died. Civilizations rose and fell. But in one small apartment, on one small planet, something impossible had happened. The deadliest life form in existence had found a home, and it would never leave.